Welcome into the DNVR Rockies Podcast presented by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use that promo code DNVR20 and you will get 20% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I am your host, Drew Creasman. I am the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me, as always, is beat writer Patrick Lyons, and we have got to discuss for you on this episode the most complete win of the Colorado Rockies season thus far. An 8-3 victory over the Oakland A's in Oakland. Really good stuff pretty much all the way around. You got 5 solid innings out of Antonio Senzatella. More great stuff from the bullpen. Everybody on the offense got in on the action. And the big shot from, I'm just coming out right up front and doing this one right away, Patrick. I'm calling it. When you get a monster jam like that from Sam Hilliard, the kid, picking up a little bit where he left off from last season, but also maybe erasing the feeling of the offer in that first set with the Rangers, goes not just yard, I believe he went yagoinkles on that one. The technical term, I believe it was. My pick for the draft king of the game, Sam Hilliard getting the party started.
He would absolutely be the king, besides the fact that that 2-run home run put them up 3-1, a lead from which they would not give up, obviously, throughout the evening. But the importance of what that did, not just for him, but it was something that he did for the entire bottom of that lineup, those young left-handed hitters. They were 0 for 23 coming into the game, and Ryan McMahon struck out in his first at-bat. Raimel Tapia struck out in his first at-bat, and then Sam Hilliard goes and takes care of that in their second plate appearance. So I think that really kind of shifted things from there, and overall, I think that trifecta of youngsters went something like, if you throw Tony Walters in there, they went 7 for 17. So they absolutely had a day when they needed it. They responded to that. That was much of the talk of Twitter today, was that idea that, you know, how much, rope do you give those young guys and whatnot. But bottom line is Sam Hilliard definitely was the king of the game for what he was able to do in that fourth inning with that 398-foot blast off A's starter Daniel Mengden.
Yeah, that ballpark feels way bigger than it actually is, right? Didn't it feel like it traveled like 700 feet and they're like 398? You're like, oh, whatever, because it felt like he got all of it. Yeah, it was a hanger. I saw some people saying, what an awful pitch. We've talked about this a little bit before, that it can still be a tough pitch to hit if you don't know that it's coming. But also, you got to give credit to the hitter in that situation as well, although no, not a good pitch in that situation. It also is the product of the other thing that's been the major theme of the season so far, the number of pitches the Colorado Rockies are seeing early in games. They continue to do it today as an offense, Patrick. It took it a while for it to break through there in Texas, but it really broke through for them here today in a number of ways, right? You saw it, whether it means, you wait for the one time where the guy does hang it and then you got to hit that pitch, and they finally did in this one with Hilliard getting it, or getting into the bullpen with a guy who's coming out here in Weems, making his debut, throwing some gas, quite frankly, but, maybe not quite ready to hang in there for multiple innings against a lineup of this caliber. Rockies were able to hang a couple on him, all a part of their renewed commitment to seeing a ton of pitches, being patient at the plate.
Yeah, Oakland didn't have the luxury of an off day on Monday, so they had a game against the A's. They will have an off day on Thursday, but anytime you can go into the other team's bullpen for 5 innings, and you're going to have a short turnaround, because we're going to have a day game tomorrow. It'll get started at 1:40 Mountain Standard Time there. So, again, it's just doing those little things well, and we will be talking about it on the podcast for those of you that didn't get a chance to see our live chat. But one of the things that was touched upon is the idea of what the pitchers maybe need to do at home versus on the road. And we had talked about this on Monday's podcast about what the hitters are trying to do now,
Yes.
being more patient, because yes, you could just absolutely obliterate the ball at Coors Field, even with a humidor. But the more, I don't know, the more overexcited and overly ambitious that you are at home, the more of a split, if you will, the more difficult life is going to be for you on the
Right.
road. So you know what, you got to find that happy medium, and they're finding that happy medium now, and it's actually paying off for them in a really big way with 3 straight wins here, starting the season off 3-1. Yeah, maybe it's not against some of the powerhouse teams of the AL West, but the A's are always a quality contender. They did have 3 games in Texas against 3 really good starting pitchers. They kind of caught a break against Corey Kluber there. But they're 3-1, and you have to like how they're looking so far. And with Germán Marquez going on the mound on Wednesday, you think, shoot, 2-game sweep, 4-1 to start the season. How about them Rockies?
Yeah, you're definitely in that spot, and not only that, but then you really do start to get running away with all of your small sample size fun conclusions, like what Tommy is starting to do here. And I feel you, Tommy. Now we might be running away with it early here, but he says, "I believe the Rockies bullpen is going to be a top tier pen." I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself, but Daniel Bard, Yency Almonte, Iro Diaz, Carlos Estevez, and Wade Davis. Wow. Of course, that's before you even get to the potential return of the presumed very soon return, I should say, of Scotty O. Exactly right, Chris. The Oberg, the Oberton. You'll get it. You'll get it there in the comments. You'll get it right. But exactly right. And somebody was saying in our Discord in the lounge chat while it was happening, Patrick, when Tyler Kinley made his season debut out there and his Rockies debut, just throwing some wicked stuff. And people are going, if this is their 6th inning guy, boy, does this bullpen look world removed from what it was last year.
Yeah, and this is before you potentially even add somebody at the trade deadline, which we saw them do in 2017 with Pat Neshek, 2018 with Sungwon Oh, and that seemed to work out for the most part towards the end of those seasons. So, yeah, again, it's only four games, and while they pitched great, they haven't pitched like, oh my God, this is the greatest bullpen of all time. Just pitch like a really good bullpen, and
Yeah.
pitch like what we think their potential really could be. Kinley was a guy that the Rockies really pumped up, and when they picked him up during the winter meetings in San Diego, he was a guy that they really had liked and had been following for a long time. And that just happens with some guys is, you know what they are most capable of, and maybe they're not getting that opportunity, or it's just the wrong mix of coaches, and it takes until a guy hits 28, 29 before he can come into your organization, and you finally have an opportunity to have him as your, say, 7th inning guy. Came in the 6th today, came in a little early, it just looked really good. And again, it's just one or more of those promising things that you can look forward to and maybe say, wow, okay, this bullpen, let's see it. I feel confident, and it could be any number of guys so far right now. Let's keep that momentum going, and Bud Black's absolutely going to be doing that in the days and weeks ahead. And they got the week homestand coming up with San Diego starting on Friday, then 4 against the Giants. So the bullpen will get a lot of opportunity at home to really test its mettle.
Yeah. And, I like what we saw from Bud Black today, particularly leaving Daniel Bard out there for 2 innings again. And I think there's a lot to that. One, let's get a bigger sample size. Let's see what he's living on here. Is it just a little bit of feeling good and good story and inspiration? Is it just that, hey, he's got his velo again and he's surprising some guys with 97, 98, even 99 at times? And what we saw again today was, no, it's not just that. He's got some pretty good location. The changeup is working well. The slider looks pretty good. And again, you don't know how long you can expect it, but it's kind of like what you said about the entire bullpen. You would almost feel worse if he was like coming out and striking out everybody, and
Yeah.
right, like the fact that he's a couple of hits here and there, a couple of base runners. He gave up a run today. Didn't bother him, didn't shake him, just pitched through it and did well. Like, that, I think, is almost a better sign. He's not on a hot streak. He's just pitching well.
He is, and that run, on a different day, that might not happen. That little dinker that I think it was Mark Canha had a little infield hit there. It was a oops. And then you have the wild pitch that,
Right.
rolled all the way down the left field line on Tony Walters. I never seen him move so fast in my life to go after that ball. That was impressive. Go back and watch that.
He was not going to let that run come in.
Wow.
8-2. He's scrambling like a running back.
That's the second time I've seen him like pounce with amazing speed and agility there. Yeah. That was pretty impressive. And then, and then after that, I think it was just a ground ball to second base to McMahon, got the out, run scored. But again, ho-hum, who cares? Like, there's absolute value in that. I don't want to give too many Rockies fans any flashbacks from, 2019, but there were those games in which a certain veteran or two might have come in the game with a 5 or 6 run lead, and in a blink of an eye, that lead goes down to 2 runs, and now you've got a real ball game when it should have been much like Tuesday night's game. Just come in, do your job. If you give up a run, not a big deal, but only give up a run. And that was it. That was all the bullpen did on Tuesday night. Now they've given up a total of a whopping, 2 earned runs now?
Two. And neither one of them was mostly due to defensive indifference, and the other one, like you said, was an oopsie and a wild pitch. As much as they haven't been knocked around by any stretch of the imagination. They've not been hit hard yet, so everybody out there, knock on wood now that we've said that, but certainly, and then Estevez, with a very comfortable lead there in the ninth, come out and just no amount of stress on Buddy. That's your job in that point, is to let your manager off the hook for not having to even think about getting anybody else up and just end it with no stress. So solid work there from Estevez, to be sure.
He's pitching all 4. No, he's pitching 3 of the 4 games already.
That's right. Workhorse.
That's wild. He is. Yeah. It's, he is obviously going to be that 7th, 8th inning guy. Him and Jairo Diaz will probably be going back and forth. But again, you kind of start to wonder, like, well, you've got a 5-run lead. It's not a save situation, right? It's not that big, but it is on the road. You kind of want, like, your backup closer in a sense. Not your 8th inning guy, not Scott Oberg, not Jairo Diaz, but like a backup closer where you say, it's not a save situation, but let's get you 3 outs, let's go home, and let's celebrate responsibly. And like Carlos Estevez, like the Rockies have those guys now, and maybe it's Tyler Kinley, maybe it's Daniel Bard, maybe it's Yency Almonte. They've got some guys with some potential. It's only... It is not a big track record yet here on 2020, but everything that you do see is enough to say, hey, something is going right. And maybe this is, again, one of those momentum builders that, happens when you start the season on the road and happens when the weather is warm. And it's just, you're jumping in midway through the season with a clean slate. And man, that slate is pretty darn clean.
Yeah. It's looking real good. I think I saw it's like a 1.32 ERA or something like that for the Rockies bullpen so far, which, again, small sample size and all that. I do want to talk a little bit more about the offense, and since they were cracking the bats, that means we get to crack open a Breckenridge brew. My favorite place to get it is down there at the Farmhouse. I really do. I haven't been down there in a while because I haven't gone out to Denver, but once the team gets back into town, I'm going to be able to swing out that way. I'm going to call 303-803-1380 sometime between noon and 8, and then I will swing on by and pick it up using that code DNVR so that you get $5 off both the food and the beer. Maybe grabbing that Mile High City Copper Lager, maybe grabbing that Mango Mosaic if I'm down there at the Farmhouse, one of my favorites. Also the 15-can sampler pack if you're not sure which one is for you. There is a Breck brew for everybody, and it's usually Strawberry Sky, but I do very much enjoy that Mile High City Copper Lager. If you're more of a traditional beer drinker, you want to sit back during the summer days with the ball game, throw a few back, that is definitely the way to go. And like I said, don't forget to use that promo code DNVR. They'll hook you up with $5 off. So I want to talk a little bit more about the offense today, but it's also kind of tied into how it's moving forward. So this is an interesting question that we got here from Matt, because I think it's really the first time this particular issue has been put in front of Bud Black. And so he says, who is your prediction for DH tomorrow afternoon for the last game of this first road trip? Anything big going on Friday, the Rockies opening day at Coors Field? The second part, no, sadly, there just will not be anything big going on, and that's
we might have something at the we might again have a actually I think we do.
We will, yeah.
We'll have something at the DNVR bar again. It might be RSVP, so you got to make sure that you call in and reserve early so you have a spot so that everyone is socially distanced properly. But you've got a booth for yourself to watch, relax, get some good food. So there will be that. Otherwise, no, there will be nothing.
Yeah, right. But to the first part of your question, I think this is really interesting because I do think that the answer is not necessarily evident yet in anything that Bud Black has done. Who's going to DH in this final game? The first time he had this day game, final game of a set situation in front of him, he went with Charlie Blackmon DHing, and he put Raimel Tapia out there into the field. I don't know if he wants to establish early that that's just going to be the standard. If he's going to go with Daniel Murphy as a DH and slide McMahon over to first base, which we've seen, but only in the event to get right-handed hitters into the lineup against a lefty pitcher, which will not be an option for the Rockies tomorrow. So I don't know. It's between those two things, and we'll see, whether or not Buddy feels like getting Hampson a little more playing time after he's been sitting for a minute is the most important thing. If it's the defense, if it's giving Tapia a day, who needs to stay in, who needs to go up, it starts now.
Yeah, I asked Buddy before the game today about the player usage, and it's obviously pretty too early in the season, and it's too broad of a question to find out if he's managing the games any differently, and ultimately he's not. But I think we're starting to see a little bit more urgency. We're not seeing certain behaviors like, all right, it's the fourth game of the season, let me at least get this guy in as a late defensive replacement. It's going to be no harm, no foul. It's very much like, no, I want my best team to be on the field and at the plate for every single pitch, period. And we're starting to see that. And in the bullpen, again, you have to work those guys in. So we're seeing some usage of all of the guys getting that opportunity. But that's also because you're not sure who the right guy is, and they're all kind of neck and neck. I mean, Yency Almontes looked just as good as Daniel Bard, and Daniel Bard looks just as good as the closer Wade Davis, and Wade Davis on Sunday looked just as good as last year's closer Jairo Diaz and Carlos Estevez. So I mean, you've got these guys that are really just neck and neck and neck, and it's a matter of, well, look, it's half of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Any of these guys I go to right now in the seventh inning, I feel really confident in. All of them are very competent. So he's going that route, but when it comes to the lineup and who he's putting out in the field, again, we have a small sample size, but it very much seems like, I got to keep going with the hot hand, and we're not seeing Hampson in the outfield instead of Blackmon. Blackmon's in there all 9 innings.
Made a nice defensive play today, actually. Really came over and cut a ball off in the gap, fired it into second. It's a double a lot of times, and it looks like he's getting more comfortable playing right field. Also, probably that he's far more rested than he normally would be at the end of July, and there have been off days, and so it'll be interesting to see how the season wears on him. But for now, he doesn't look like a defensive liability, and so you don't need to get him out of there. And then Tapia had an offer coming in, so you go, well, maybe you give Tap a day. It would be weird, but just to get Hampson in there and not marry yourself to this idea of, all lefties against the right-handed pitcher, and then Tap goes out and throws out a couple of hits, and you go, well, shoot, well, you might want to leave him in there to see if he can stay hot because you're going to need that guy, but you can't keep Hampson on your bench forever. This is a really good problem to have, by the way. This is when you start feeling good about the guys on your team.
It is, and I don't think Bud Black is a tinkerer. I don't think he tinkers too much, or even any, for the most part. It wouldn't shock me if at the ninth inning we would have seen McMahon slide over to first base, Owings in at second, or Hampson in at second, because the game plan is McMahon's going to start at first base on Wednesday, and Murphy's going to DH. So you know what? Wanted to get McMahon a little bit of exposure to get ready for tomorrow. Now that would be some minor tinkering, but you go, well, that makes all the sense in the world. No, we're not seeing that. We're just seeing, look, you're going from inning 1 to inning 9, and here's how we're doing it. We also have the issue of, it being so late in the season, and yet these guys, they don't, have their legs underneath them like they would normally, right? I don't mean that in any kind of bad way. It's just they need those reps. They need to just be out there. And I think it's a matter of, well, you know what? We're going to err on the side of Charlie Blackmon being in the outfield for 9 innings to get him ready, because he is a guy that's going to have more of an impact. He is more valuable than having Garrett Hampson or Chris Owings, stay sharp off the bench. They need to do that, but you can still stay sharp off the bench, and you can still be productive, not getting those starts, all that frequently, because there are so many left-handed guys in the lineup. So I think it just is what it is, and I don't think there's going to be any any platooning in that sense, or any share of the playing time. If there's a righty on the mound, ride those left-handers for a while, and if they need an off day, give them an off day. That seemed like that might have been the case for Wednesday, but nope, they all got hits. They were all very productive at the plate. They look good, and so roll them out there again. That's right.
100%. Roll them back out there again. You'll worry about getting those righty utility speed defense guys in there when you can get them in there. We haven't seen Josh Fuentes at all, and
Elias Diaz.
Right. And it's just, they'll get their chances eventually, but yeah, you got to ride with these guys, and when that lefty shows up, then you still got to put them in there and expect them to produce, and that's tough, and we'll talk about it when it happens, but that's just the way to go. And look, the odds are rising on your Colorado Rockies. They're looking good. If you're feeling good about them, now might be the time to download that DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use that code DNVR, because they'll hook you up with a sign-up bonus of up to $1,000. If you're feeling it, man, or you feel like somebody out there's in a groove, somebody here you're liking where the Rockies are at, maybe that Trevor Story run thing, you see him taking some pitches, getting on base, that we talked about that before the season. Nolan Arenado with a little sac fly there early on, his first RBI of the season, but showing you again his ability to get them when they count, and he's going to do more than just hit solid fly balls into left field in order to drive in runs throughout this season. So if whatever you might be feeling confident about out there, now's a good time to put your money where your mouth is, get a little bit of skin in the game. I know they got some really fun slam dunk offers going on right now in the NBA, with them getting all set up in their bubble down there in Orlando. So if you're also a little unsure about Major League Baseball right now, but you feel pretty good about the NBA and the bubble, or anything from golf to MMA, you can bet on just about anything. I believe table tennis was a.
I was going to say,
were you going to jump in?
Table tennis is real big right now, so get it on the ground floor, so you know who wins in the Yevgeny Nevlitsky matchup against some other Russian name that I can't make up off the top of my head.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that table tennis stuff, we are not making that up. That's a very real thing. Hopefully, very soon, you'll be able to bet on rugby as well. That'll be fun. We'll have to figure out what the lines are on that, and how all that stuff works, and what the over-under expect. Because the scoring can get great. Like, a rugby game can get out of hand in a hurry. But they typically don't. So I guess it's kind of like baseball in that way, where they can be they can be very, very close. But we kind of saw it today where the game started to get away from the A's, and shoot, well, we'll try to get them tomorrow. It can just kind of happen, right? But yeah, man, as I was saying, I think this was the point of this entire rant, that if you're feeling confident about any of these things, then the DraftKings Sportsbook app is the way to go. Download it now. Use that code DNVR to get that sign-up bonus of up to $1,000. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Other terms and conditions and eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Change that last part on me a little bit. Hey, all right. So we've gotten this far, and I don't know how we did it, Patrick, considering all of the fuss and hoopla we made in the offseason and leading up to the season about the fourth man in the rotation for your Colorado Rockies. But we hadn't mentioned him yet. Antonio Senzatella. That was interesting. Okay, all right. A couple. An inefficient 5-inning, 2-run start. You'll take it more often than not out of Senzatella. You worry that the 2 innings where one where he went over 30 pitches in the first and loaded the bases, and then in the third threw close to 30 pitches. That had another 20 plus. What was it?
29.
29. You don't like that. It's difficult to get around. But what I tried to mention on Twitter was a year ago, and there's a ton of stats that bear this out, Senzatella was one of the worst in the league at getting strikeouts and just at getting swings and misses in general. He didn't have the stuff to escape those jams. And in game 1 against the Oakland A's, he did. He busted out 97 every once in a while, got Matt Olson on high cheese up and away. He broke out some curveballs and some sliders that he just did not. And we've talked about it all offseason. We talked about spring training, the different grip, the different mechanics. Was it going to show itself in the game? And then he comes out, and there's so much on the surface to be frustrated about. You forget that the fundamentals of what has changed about Antonio Senzatella was very much on display in his first outing of 2020.
Yeah, for anyone that hadn't seen any video or photographs of Senzatella, he's obviously lost a decent amount of weight. You could see it in his body. You definitely can see it in his face. And I think that's just going to allow him to feel more athletic for a long season, but particularly this shortened season. It's just going to have him feeling all that much more sharper. And his next start will be against the Giants, so you kind of like that it's a lineup that lacks punch and it maybe hides.
They got Hunter Pence batting cleanup,
pretty much. And Brandon Crawford, batting like 7th. So I don't know who's batting 5th and 6th. It's crazy. But
they made up the guys batting 5th and 6th. So I was reading the lineup. I was like, who in the what?
They're creative characters, I think,
right.
Quite possibly.
I think that's right.
I would have guessed that about Jordan Weems when I saw him step out.
Same.
And Mengden,
especially with the hair. When they came out, I was like, no, the A's are just making these are recycled players from old A's teams in the 80s. Like, these aren't real guys, not real players.
So Senzatella will be facing the Giants, and I think that's just ultimately it's going to hide some of the cracks. But that can be a good thing. If a guy just doesn't have his best stuff, you can say, hey, you did a good job, pat on your back. You kept us in the game. It was sort of a pseudo quality start. I know 6 innings, 3 runs is that definition of a quality start. But in 2020, when guys are really only going through the order 2 times, if you can get 5 innings and you only give up 2 runs, you did your job. Now it's up to the bullpen to do the rest, and hopefully they only give up 2 runs or less. And you're going to win a lot of ball games with that recipe. Right. And Senzatella did that. Again, he was able to work out of those jams. There weren't those big innings. He just gave up a run in 2 separate innings, got a double play. That was really big that Nolan ended up starting. Weren't too many big defensive plays, but from a statistical standpoint, that was the big one that kind of ended his outing in the 5th inning. That was really huge. So could clean a lot of things up with 6 hits and 3 walks. But again, he made big pitches when they were most important. I don't think you can count on him doing that all the time because you're not going to get away with some of that against some of these better hitting lineups. But all in all, thumbs up to Antonio Senzatella tonight.
Yeah, the big thing that I think will be interesting to watch as he goes through this is him trying to find that balance. Somebody hit me up on Twitter, or maybe it was even in our Discord, and said, he's got to pitch a little more to contact, man. And I was like, that's actually kind of hilarious because I don't disagree with you, but Senzatella's problem for the first 3 years of his career was he pitched too much to contact, and he embraced it and he admitted it, and there were times that. And you saw what it was. It was basically a 50-50 proposition for Senzatella when he went out there. If he was getting those good rollovers, if he was really living on the edges that day and pitching to contact, you got to win out of Senzatella. That's why his career is basically 50-50 despite the weird, ups and downs in his numbers. But he's tried to add this element to his game, the swing and miss element to his game. And you saw both the good and bad of that tonight. He got swings and misses when he needed them, when he never would have got them before with guys on base, and that's huge. But it also ran his pitch count way, way up. And guys who aren't used to pitching for the swing and miss and throwing that, I can't remember. I want to say it was the third inning that started to get away from him, but the very first pitch he threw, either the first or second hitter, was a slider that was just gorgeous, just hanging on a wall, perfect, but it ended just out of the zone, kind of where you wanted it, just low and away from the right-handed hitter, and whoever was up there, maybe Chapman, just spit on the thing, just took it, and it's ball one. And for a guy who's used to pitching to contact, that's so frustrating, and it's tough to find that balance. So it'll be very interesting to watch Senzatella and see, can he go back and forth between those things. He's had to get away from this pitch to contact mentality and be like, I've got to try to get guys to swing through my pitches. You got way more of that tonight, but you can't throw 30 pitches an inning twice. You got to find that balance.
Yeah, I thought there are moments where he was working with a changeup there that looked really solid. And again, hitting is all about timing. Pitching is about messing up that timing. So, again, if Senzatella is able to maybe lean on that pitch a little bit more, you're going to get, swing and misses a lot more frequently. Yeah, you're going to have your contact too, but as long as you're spotting up those pitches where you want it to be, you're going to induce weak contact, or you're just going to get guys to chase when you set them up with that slider, like you said, to Marcus Semien. I think that was to start the third inning, and he's a veteran guy, but ultimately was able to get him to fly out to Hilliard in left field in that at bat before it started to unravel a little bit for him, but brought it back. It's interesting. We talked about the Rockies having patience. We didn't see the Rangers do that. There were, I think it might have been Saturday and Sunday start where they could have had Freeland on the ropes, and maybe he wasn't on the ropes, but he was getting backed up a little bit. And then they had a 6-pitch inning, a 9-pitch inning, and that happened with Senzatella after 31 pitches in the first, 9 pitches in the second, 29 in the third, 6 pitches. With the bottom of the lineup up, just take some pitches, guys.
Yeah,
let them off the hook.
We talked about that on the other side of it, right? With the Rockies, one of the things we said that's difficult about this philosophy is you have to stick to it. And that if somebody's going to swing at the first pitch, that means the guy before him and after him can't. You just can't. And the A's got away from that, right? They weren't taking a team offensive approach. And the Colorado Rockies through the first 4 or 5. How many games? How many games? I'm already lost here, Patrick. Through the first.
True. We're recording this on the evening of July 28th.
Yeah.
So obviously they've only played 4 games. Because this is how we've done it for every year for 150 years, Drew.
This is just the most interesting thing that we're living through, isn't it? But yes, through these games, they have been 100% committed to that philosophy to a man, everybody up there at the plate. We saw another couple of great at-bats out of Tony Wolters from the ninth spot today, including a big RBI double down the right field line. All of it. Everyone's going up there, taking pitches, waiting for that mistake, driving up the counts. It's really a thing of beauty to behold. And you just hope that when they get back to that Coors Field and the temptation of letting it fly, that they maintain this approach.
For sure, yeah. This will be the true test, and man, if they can go to 4-1 after tomorrow's matinee, I mean that would be fantastic for besides the fact that they're going against NL West teams, which is obviously huge, especially the Padres right now, who are 4-1 as of Tuesday night. So hey, that's a first place marquee matchup now. With a win for the Rockies on Thursday. And so, yeah, it's going against those rivals in the division, but it's also, now what are you going to do at Coors Field? Right. How are you going to pitch? John Gray is going to get 2 starts at Coors, and I think it should line up for Kyle Freeland to also get that final day game. So actually would start the day game against San Francisco. So, yeah, those guys are at a disadvantage in a sense. But again, it's not about the stat lines, and Freeland has talked about that. It just has to be about keeping your team into the game. And if the starters can just embrace this idea of like, look, just get through 5 innings, you'll be fine. And as long as the bullpen holds on to do what it's doing, and Herman Marquez can give the bullpen another off day whenever he goes, they're going to be all right. But that's why they play the games, as Bud likes to say, because we don't know. It's all easy to surmise and to say, oh, this is going to continue to happen and keep rolling. We know it's not, but you know what? It's fun to think about what if it does continue. Maybe it's Tuesday night. It's Wednesday, right? Depending on where you're at. It's Wednesday. The Rockies could still go 59-1. After that tweet on Friday after everyone on Friday goes, hey, it could be 59-1, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, but you know what, Drew? It could be 59-1.
59-1.
Guess what?
I mean, no.
4 days later. Hey, didn't I say 59-1?
Technically, it's technically on the table. It is technically. But I'll tell you what, folks. It looks like a pretty darn good ball club. So stick with us through the rest of this summer. If you're listening here on the live, then we're about to sign off for the evening and bid you adieu. We will be back tomorrow for the afternoon game. Right afterwards, we'll be doing the full live show for you. If you're listening in on the podcast, then stay tuned for some thoughts on a few other bits of news for the day and our conversation on what Brian Shaw had to say about pitching at Coors Field and altitude. You definitely don't want to miss out on that. Otherwise, thanks everyone for hanging out. We'll see you next time.